Severe weather is marching across parts of the Northeast. Joe Rayo will have the radars. And of course, we've got the Father's Day weekend, which is looking absolutely fabulous. And then we transition over into a heat wave next week. And it's going to last all week. And there are going to be places in the Ohio Valley and in parts of the interior Northeast that could see triple digits. Plus, the tropics look like they might be bubbling up next week. We'll talk about that too. And anything else we can think of on this Friday night Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. Use the coupon code SPRING 2024. If you do, you will get
You'll get 10 big percent off. Yes.
And welcome tonight to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, everybody. A special Friday night version because we don't usually do Friday night shows unless there's something going on. And kind of thought that the storms that are rolling through this evening, this was a good time. So welcome to everybody on the chat board, and to those of you watching in the background, welcome as well. Just subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss us. Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 is the usual schedule, and then we're off Fridays and Saturdays. But because we're on today, we're going to be off on Sunday, Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all the dads on the chat board and all the dads in the background. And happy Father's Day to you too, Joseph.
And the same holds true for you. And happy Grandfather's Day, I guess, too.
Yeah, there's actually a separate Grandparents' Day, but that's fine. We
No,
get to have two.
no. Okay. Well,
All right.
that's nice. Well, right now, there's a few moments ago, Renata just told me that her older brother, John, who lives in Mineola, indicates that it's raining cats, dogs, and other assorted farm animals.
Oh, very good. So let's look at those farm animals on the radar or radars, and I'm sure you're going to take us on a tour of all this activity.
Yes, well, why don't we? Well, let me just get the share capability,
Oh,
which
yep, that's right. I forgot to do that.
you
Always,
forgot.
I forget. I forget a lot of things these days. Okay, you're all set to go.
There it is. There we go. So we have at this moment in time what looks to be kind of a squall line that's moving on through. Actually, where I am, we had some hard showers, a little rumble or two of thunder, but nothing really that we could not handle. But this line that you see now crossing into Nassau County in Long Island just went past New York City and is now getting ready to make the tour, the weekend tour, I guess, of the island of Long. It is, again, as I said, over, it looks like central Nassau. And if it holds together, we may see some significant heavy rainfall across western Suffolk County and maybe even as far east as central and eastern Suffolk County. Again, if it holds together. Now we're coming up on sunset, and I think there may be an onshore southerly flow, and that may diminish the strength or potency of this area of heavy duty shower activity, but we'll see. But that's the area right now that is getting hit most significantly. If we go to, let's say, New Jersey, let's go to Philadelphia, and there is a severe thunderstorm watch that's in effect until 9 o'clock tonight. It's kind of in the area south and west of New York. Maybe Joe will show that to us a little more clear when we look at SPC in a few moments. But it seems to be in this general vicinity. But it seems to me, Joe, that most of the heavy duty activity is now beyond the watch area. So that watch may end up expiring or maybe taken down very soon, even though, again, it's up officially until 9 o'clock tonight. Let's check our friends down in
No, your friends up in Boston first.
up in Boston. All right, we'll take
Yes.
it at Boston.
Because Arthur is watching tonight from Boston, and he had a surprise thunderstorm, that the little cluster that bubbled up earlier today, and the warnings didn't go off on his phone. They were kind of playing catch up. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well,
Let's see what's going on now.
we have what looks to be a swath of shower activity, and in the final few frames of the loop here, we have a line that is generating more yellow than anything else. So maybe some moderate activity occurring from about the Boston area and points due south of Boston. There may be some rather heavy rainfall to contend with. And here's that area that I said was affecting adversely parts of Nassau County. It's also affecting parts of southwestern Connecticut. So if you live in southwest Connecticut, like Dennis Cassia, our faithful friend on the chat board, he may very well be experiencing some heavy duty weather going on right now at his house. But that's the view from Boston. Is this Lake Winnipesaukee up here? And
Hold on. In New Hampshire?
yeah, up there. That
Yeah, that might be. Yes.
So it looks like there's a little cluster of showers and heavy storms moving right across Lake Winnipesaukee right at this moment in time. We go a little further north. Let's go up to well, let's see, Colchester, Vermont, and we get a better view of this. There are some spot showers, although for the most part, upstate New York and most of Vermont and New Hampshire are pretty well out in the clear, save again for that one area that is popping up in the vicinity of Lake Winnipesaukee. But most everywhere in upstate New York and New England, central and northern New England, are clear and dry for the moment. I wanted to go down to South Florida just to see what's going on down there. And as you can see, it looks a heck of a lot better now than it did 24 hours ago. There are areas of showers, but it looks like this is more typical of what you would normally see at this time of the year. Let's see, this is Melbourne, Florida, and you can
Well,
see,
it's not. It's definitely not like the last 3 days. I mean,
yeah,
it was crazy what's
yeah,
going on there. So they definitely got the much needed break that they were waiting for today.
yes, no question. Now, but this is typical now for Florida. You get much of the state that's dry, but also you get these areas, these concentrated pop-up areas where the rain comes down heavily for 10, 15, 20 minutes. And interestingly, Joe, the area, those pop-ups are moving from the ocean. They're moving on an east to west track, and you can see right here, especially that is taking place, or that's happening. So again, nothing like what we've seen, especially in those areas south of Lake Okeechobee, which were getting bombed with tremendous rainfall, and
Right.
places, as we said yesterday, picking up 15, 20, even 25 inches of rain.
Well, I
But
just was looking here. These are 72-hour rainfall totals ending at 4:30 a.m. this morning. So this pretty much covers, the 99% of it. I'm just going to give you a few of the higher amounts. In Broward County was Hallandale at 20.65 inches, and in Collier County, Big Cypress near the Everglades, 27.95 inches of rain there.
oh,
And the runner up was Oasis in Collier County of 19.72. In Let's see, in Hendry County, 2 miles northwest of the Big Sprices Semino, whatever that is, 14.4 inches. In Miami-Dade County, Miami Shores, 21.66, and then 1 mile northeast of Miami, northeast of Miami, from a observer there, 14.29. So 21.66 was the big one for Miami-Dade County. For Monroe County, 4 miles southeast of the Wilderness Waterway, 6.09. In Palm Beach County, 3 miles northeast of the Lion Country Safari Park, and I'll have you know, Joe, that I've been there not once but twice.
wow,
10.48 inches, and that really kind of sums it up. So
it sure does.
the worst of it is over with. Tomorrow might get a little busy for a while in South Florida, but that continuous stuff that they were dealing with is just finally done.
Well, you can see here on the Washington, D.C. Radar slash Sterling, Virginia, that in western Maryland, and also, I guess you call this the panhandle of West Virginia and Northern Virginia, they are seeing some rather localized but rather heavy showers and possible thunderstorms occurring. This would be in the vicinity right around here of Hagerstown, Maryland. So they're getting their fair share of showery and thundery conditions in that region. And if we go further west, let's check out the Dakotas. We'll go to Sioux Falls, and you can see that they are seeing some rather significant rain and shower activity over portions of southeastern South Dakota, moving toward Iowa, and this is also in northeastern Nebraska. And in fact, we go further south from there, let's say over to Goodland, Kansas, and you can see the activity is actually moving on a south to north course now. This is
And by the way, the storms that are in eastern Colorado that are now moving into western Kansas and then already into parts of western Nebraska, from north to south, there are a dozen severe thunderstorm warnings that are up at the moment, running from northeastern Colorado straight south into a small portion of western Oklahoma and northwest Texas and in eastern New Mexico.
And you could see, I mean, the potency. I mean, these are deep shades of red, indicating some very heavy activity that is taking place. This again is in the northeastern portion of Colorado. Up here is Nebraska, and down here is Kansas. And again, these are potential uh, storms that could bring twisters and funnel clouds, tornadic activity. So there's a good reason why, as Joe mentioned, there are what a dozen watch
Yes, a dozen.
a dozen warnings, I should say.
A dozen warnings, correct.
Wow, wow. One more stop we'll take in North Dakota. We'll go to Bismarck, home of the Raccoon National Cemetery, and you could see that there is a broken line of showers and storms. It looks like this line, however, is diminishing somewhat in strength. If it's not diminishing, it's slowly, underscore the word slowly, fading out. It's probably some pretty good areas of rain with this, but again, it's moving fairly quickly to the northeast. And again, when we start the loop, you can see those deep shades of red, which now have faded into kind of a yellow color. It indicates that that area is, again, beginning to wind on down somewhat. So that's pretty much it, unless you have any other place that you want to go to, Joe.
No, we're good. And just a reminder to everybody, it's 7:50 p.m. Eastern Time on this Thursday night, the 14th of June. So if you're watching this later on tonight, during the overnight, or even first thing tomorrow morning, remember everything is dated. So if you want to check on what's going on locally in your area with regards to severe weather or any other kind of weather, because we can't be on 24/7, even though some people would like us to be on 24/7.
Hey,
Make sure you go to weather.gov. And by the way, the one that's been complaining the most about us not being on 7 days a week, and we do a Friday night show, and guess who's not here?
yes,
Naturally.
exactly.
All right, so on to the watches and warnings map, and doesn't really. I think this is the 14th of June, and if you look up in western Montana, those are winter storm watches that are up in western Montana with that deep upper trough that's going to be coming into the west, which is going to be setting up the heat wave here in the east. And I mean, now we are talking about you know high up, um, but nonetheless, they do have watches up for a number of places there in those counties in northwestern Montana. For I was reading some of the forecasts of depending on which county I picked, it was either 2 to 4 or 4 to 8, and there were a couple of counties that they had 8 to 12 in their forecast. So it's that kind of a strange month. You can see the severe thunderstorm watches that are up. The Jersey watch will probably go away soon. That actually came up a little bit late from SPC this afternoon. And also in Northern Virginia, Southwest PA, and Southeast Ohio, we have an ongoing severe thunderstorm watch there. And the areas that we pointed out in eastern Colorado, down into eastern New Mexico and northwest Texas, and also extending up into Kansas and western Kansas and uh, southern and western Nebraska, all under severe thunderstorm watches, heat advisories and excessive heat warnings from southwest Texas, west across southern Arizona, parts of southern Utah, a few counties in Nevada, and also in a few counties up in the interior of Northern California. And here's what the satellite loop looks like tonight. The train of tropical moisture from the northwest Caribbean northeastward out into the Atlantic has shifted eastward, and this has been a blessing for South Florida today for the most part. But there's another surge that might come in during the day tomorrow, and we'll show you that when we get to the models. You see the system moving through the Rockies now, and that kind of a long line of thunderstorms with lots of lightning strikes extending from western Nebraska and southeastern Wyoming all the way into northeastern New Mexico. You can see the lightning strikes on the satellite over western Long Island and southwestern Connecticut as that moves eastward. That'll be a good indicator to tell us whether, as we watch the loop in the next hour or so, whether those storms are holding together or not. You do have a strong upper trough, which is probably compensating somewhat for the onshore wind that likes to be a thunderstorm killer along the coast. So, there's sort of this delicate game going on between those two uh, effects. And I can't really see it, but there is a swirl off the Pacific Northwest coast that's going to be driving into the northwestern part of the United States. And that's going to force the big ridge to build in the east and bring us the heat wave. And here's what the U.S. radar looks like, some showers coming into Washington state. You can see what's going on in the plains and in the Rockies. There are some heavier downpours in the Florida Straits and just sort of clipping southeasternmost Florida. There's a couple of stronger storms uh, halfway between Tampa and Daytona on I-4, not too far from Orlando. They're sort of just kind of sitting there. They're not really moving in any one particular direction. Maybe a little bit of an eastward nod, but not much of one. Storm Prediction Center, they did expand that slight risk area, and rightfully so, considering what's played out so far this evening from southwestern Maine, and then kind of swings across Connecticut, Long Island, and New Jersey, and goes west through southwest PA, southeast Ohio, and northernmost West Virginia, and also that area out west, the big area of slight risk is playing out according to plan in Nebraska and in eastern Colorado and western Kansas. And there's 2% tornado risk in that particular area. Now, for tomorrow, SPC, it's all in the plains, marginal to slight risk from the southern to the central plains, and a narrow band, northwest Texas, northeastward into southern Minnesota. Slight risk or slightly, an elevated risk there, slight risk as opposed to marginal risk, western Iowa, eastern Nebraska, eastern Montana, and western North Dakota on the other side. And this has actually a couple of 2% areas and a small area of 5% tornado risk in eastern Nebraska and in western Iowa. And just to go back, notice there's nothing in the Northeast, nothing in the Mid-Atlantic, nothing in the Ohio Valley for tomorrow. And for Sunday, the same thing here, nothing. You've got marginal risk from eastern Wyoming northeastward to the upper peninsula of Michigan. And we do have some risk in the long range on day 5, I think it was. If we can get it to come up. There we go. No, I'm sorry, on day 4. Implied slight risk in parts of southeastern South Dakota, southeastern North Dakota, northeastern South Dakota, and up into central and parts of northern Minnesota. And as far as rainfall is concerned, now they've got a quarter of an inch here, and this is definitely from what's going through now. This is the forecast beginning at 8 o'clock tonight, so just in a couple of minutes. Once we get through these thunderstorms, you can expect that the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, the Southeast, the Ohio Valley. If you do get anything, we're talking like hundredths here in the next 7 days. And in many places, Joe, it's not going to be a drop. Meanwhile, Florida catching a little bit of a break here with this next 7 days, only seeing about a half to three quarters of an inch to an inch and a quarter in some places, which is manageable. But you see the big pickup along the coast of southern Louisiana and coastal Texas from Port Arthur all the way down to Brownsville, and then maybe about 75 or so miles inland where we have an area of 5 to 7 inches of rain being indicated, and that's part of the tropics starting to cook a little bit as we move into next week. But it with this heat coming here, this is going to be. If you want a thunderstorm to just temporarily cool it off, it probably is not going to happen.
No, absolutely. I agree with you, Joe. This is going to be a very hot, a very dry week. And I'll tell you this, just looking at the various models or whatever like that, my feelings are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week here in the lower Hudson Valley, the average temperature is going to be on the order of around 97, average high temperature, 97, give or take a degree or two. So what yours truly is thinking of for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week, and maybe even Friday, is like something like 95 to 99 degrees. We have not had a stretch like that in a few years. I think I mentioned last night that we had a stretch in 2017 of extreme heat. This might be the first time since 2017 that we've had heat of this magnitude, but also heat of such a protracted magnitude. In other words, not just a day or two, and then all of a sudden the heat breaks with a cold front thing. This may be, more than a few days. This may be 4, 5, 6 days, even more so. So it looks like it's going to be getting really hot. Cecilia Hernandez, no. To your question on the chat board, do I have an in-ground sprinkler system? No, I do not. And what else can I say? I'm sometime this weekend I'm gonna do the lawn, and on the tractor, Joe, we have various settings: 4, 3.5, 3, 2.5, if you want to be sadistic or whatever. I almost wish that we had 4.5 on the tractor because anything you get down to like even a 3.5 with the kind of weather that's coming this way. That and you don't water enough. That grass is going to burn, not entirely, but if we're I'm looking for a lot of brown patches to show up by this time next week with all that heat.
And by the way, it's not a heat wave unless the governor of the People's Republic of the state of New York says it's a heat wave. And indeed, she says it's a heat wave. Governor Hochul has um, released, I don't know if you saw it, Joe, but there's a heat wave next week, a life-threatening heat wave. Uh, so they're just letting everybody know. I guess they like to step in front of these
But
weather events as much
but
as they can.
Joe,
We never got these heat waves in
we have
Island.
not had a heat wave. When we first designed New York with its weird shape relative to New England, we didn't have those kind of heat waves back then in those days.
No, we certainly didn't, did we? Here's the shortwave going by, and of course, you got this deep upper low that comes into the west. You see it there in California, in Washington and Oregon. This is on Sunday. It comes in, and that starts to pump the ridge up in the eastern part of the United States. And nothing much moves really. That trough in the west is just kind of in a semi-permanent position there for the first half of next week, and the big ridge is in a semi-permanent position for almost all of next week. In fact, the trough, instead of part of it pulls out, part of it gets left behind and just sort of flattens out and weakens, and that just really prolongs the upper high. And I would think that just judging by the way the upper high is, um, you got to think that Wednesday, Thursday, and Thursday will probably be the two hottest days in the mix. And I honestly think that there will be a few places that will go to 100 in the Northeast, the Mid Atlantic states, and parts of the Ohio Valley, and even in the lower Great Lakes and in parts of southeastern Michigan and Ohio. Tuesday is going to be their first hot day, and they'll probably reach middle to upper 90s there. And we could see Pittsburgh maybe go to the century mark um, with this particular heat wave, and then Wednesday and Thursday we could see a little peppering of temperatures close to 100 in parts of New England and maybe even upstate New York.
And the funny thing, the not that's not so funny, but while we are going through all of this heat here in the eastern United States, the folks who suffered for most of last summer out in the West looks like they're going to have some cooler uh, conditions or cooler than normal conditions, at least for a while.
Well,
Uh,
when you think about what's going on, everything is opposite from last year, pretty much. The drought in the Mississippi River Valley and across the Gulf states, that's gone. Okay. In the West, instead of the blistering heat, you got this deep trough. And now in the East, we're dealing with, not that it didn't get hot last year, it did, although the hottest weather was probably in early September. But this is the first time in a while that we've seen an upper high like this in the eastern part of the United States in a long, long time.
yeah, I could remember back in the 70s. Now the question is also, will the power people be able to provide enough for all the air conditioning that will be probably blasting away? I remember back in the 70s. You remember Joe Con Edison, the power plant? They called it Big Alice, and it kept
Yes.
breaking down. And they had like rolling brownouts in various parts of the New York City area. So you had to go without a few hours without power for a while they tried to conserve electricity. So
Yeah, here where I am in North Georgia, the issue's usually in the is the other way. Down south, you really get the power strains in the wintertime when you get the bitter cold air, and not so much in the summertime.
yeah, and
In
you know
fact,
the
hardly at all in the summertime, unless there's a thunderstorm that knocks out power.
dew point temperatures next week are going to be flirting with 70. So you talk about mid and upper 90s with dew points around 70. That's crazy. That's just you talk about oppressive. That's like intolerable.
Right.
So
And with all that humidity, you still won't be able to buy a thunderstorm, more than likely. All right, so let's roll this along on the GFS with a nice big high for the weekend. Enjoy the weekend because it's going to be nice, reasonable temperatures, reasonable humidity, and then it all goes downhill from that respect as the high positions itself offshore and then builds back westward, and you start to get into a southwest or even a west-southwest flow, and that continues. Well, the GFS wants to kind of spit up a few scattered storms late Tuesday. I don't know if there's some kind of upper trough or not, but I wouldn't count on it. And then again, in inland areas, late Wednesday or Wednesday night. The one thing is it may be so hot and then so much humidity around that if there's even so much as a tiny ripple in the small, small mesoscale atmosphere, that you could maybe wind up with a scattered, inland thunderstorm that blows up. Thursday, more of the same, with not much changing. And then we get into Friday and Saturday. Now, it looks like as we get toward the end of next week, there's a couple of things going on that we need to look at. One is if you look in the southwest, while all this is going on, pressures across the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean are going to be below normal. So this might allow, and there's not a ton of shear going on next week. So this might allow a couple of things to spin up. One is what the Hurricane Center is watching for, which is already they're talking about in the Southwest Gulf, and the other is uh, the GFS kind of trying to spin something up later in the week, late next week in the Caribbean, then sort of shooting it up northward into Florida. And I don't know how real that is because the other European model has the first thing, but it doesn't really have the second thing. But it's something to sort of we're going to have to keep an eye on with the way the upper air is set up in the Gulf states. But I would probably say that judging, just laying that aside, uh, the next cold front probably maybe next Sunday or next Monday, depending on timing, to sort of break the heat. I think through at least Saturday, it's going to be miserably oppressive in much of the east, and particularly the mid-Atlantic and Northeast and back to the Ohio Valley. But a real break might come like maybe late next weekend or the very beginning of you know the week of the 22nd, whatever that is. I'm sorry, not the 22nd, the week of starting Monday, June 24th.
yeah, well, we have. I'd have to. I used to know this off the top of my head, but I'd have to look up and see when was the last time we had a stretch of 90 plus degree days that exceeded, let's say, 4 or 5. It's been a while, and
Oh yeah.
the only thing that looks like a possible relief, legitimate relief, might come, believe it or not, maybe around the 27th of this month. There's some kind of an upper load show that the GFS wants to drop on down from the Great Lakes, although by the time it reaches us, it's already kind of, you know, frittering away, so to speak, and may not bring us all that much. But, by that time, beggars can't be choosers. If we
Yeah,
can,
I see it here. It's something that drops down into eastern Canada and New England briefly, but then once it pulls out, the big ridge pops up again
right, right, absolutely.
because there's more troughing in the west.
And that could be the end of the month. That's the big ridge building back in June 30th. We could be in this, folks, for quite some time. In fact, let me allow me, Joe, if you will. I'm going to go to Climate Prediction Center. Friday is the day when they come out with the experimental 3 to 4 week um, probability maps for precipitation and for temperature. And I just want to show everybody what the
Yeah, it's
what
all
the
yours.
what the 3 to 4 week prog is looking like. I'll share it with all of you right now. It should be up on the screen.
And it
This
is.
the 3 to 4 week temperature outlook. This is from June 29th to July the 12th. And I point out to you, let's see, one, two, three, uh, one, two, three, four. So that is 70 to 80% probability here in the Northeast, Mid Atlantic, and Ohio Valley for above normal temperatures. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's a deep shade of red, which covers all of the Northeast, save for northern Maine. And that it covers, of course, our area here in the tri state area, Pennsylvania, the Virginias, Ohio, and most of the eastern Great Lakes. This is the projection for, again, let me just bring it back up again. This is the projection for June 29th to July the 12th. So the intimation here from Climate Prediction Center is that once we get into this spell of heat, it may stay with us with, maybe a few short breaks from time to time. It may stay with us right on through into almost the middle part of next month, the middle part of July. So this really, really looks like a spell of exceedingly hot weather. And how
Well,
about precipitation?
how
Precipitation
about precipitation?
precipitation, equal chances. Now, Joe, you said everything is opposite to what it was like last year. Last year, if you remember, here in especially the New York metropolitan area and New England, I know in parts of Vermont, for example, they had periods of like it was like emergency situation because there was just too much rain, tremendous amounts of rainfall. On one day in July last year, here in Putnam Valley, I had over 9 inches of rain. Well, take a look at this, folks. June 29th to July the 12th, we're in what is being described as equal chances here, but just a stone's throw away to the west and south, below normal chances. I suspect even if we did have equal chances, it's not going to be anywhere near what we had last year, where it seemed like every day there was seemingly was some kind of a threat of flooding or heavy duty rainfall. So basically, basically, according to the Climate Prediction Center, here in our part of the country, it's going to be a stretch of nearly a month-long stretch of heat and humidity, and also the lack of any significant precipitation. So what else can I say? And this comes off of a spring, a late winter and spring, which was exceedingly wet. I mean, I don't have to remind you. I mean, February, March, April, it was like raining almost every other day. But now it looks like as we move into the upcoming summer, and summer officially will arrive next Thursday, just before 5 o'clock astronomically, with the solstice. When we move into summer officially, it's going to be every bit of summer, and it's going to be summer for not just a few days. It looks like we're going to have it for many, many days thereafter, Joe.
And David Schwartz hitting super chat tonight. Thank you, David, and informing us also that earlier today, Con Edison asked people from Hell's Kitchen to the theater district to reduce power. Now, they went for the high rent area here to cut the power down. I don't know why they singled out those two areas.
Maybe they feel like it's going to soon with the weather pattern shaping up. It's going to feel like hell.
Uh, or, well, hell hath no fury like a bad Broadway play.
Remember when you couldn't say hell on television?
No, you could. In fact, it's funny you should say that because I was watching a clip. For some reason on my Facebook feed, I'm getting clips from the old clips of The Price is Right with Bob Barker, and they showed a clip from 1985 where there was a problem at the beginning of the show with a somebody bid on when they call the contestants down. She bid $12,000 on a motorcycle, and the the uh, the screens in front of the contestants where the prices would come up of what they're bidding only went to four figures. So they had to, kind of muddle through that. Um, anyhow, it said
There
the
was a,
word.
I remember back in the 60s, Gulden's Mustard came out with spicy hot mustard. And here's like two jars of Gulden's Mustard. And one of them was about to say, it's hotter than, and the other mustard jar cut that jar off by saying, like you
Well,
couldn't
that's
say.
kind of well. What happened was Bob Barker says we've had a, and he says it slowly. He says we had a hectic start to the show, and then he says note standards and CBS standards and practices. I said hectic, you know,
Yeah.
as opposed to the H word. Yes, they were much more touchy in back in the day. The Hurricane Center, yes, they still got this area now east of North Carolina, 10% chance. It's going away. Goodbye. And then they are acknowledging the system at the Southwest Gulf, saying a depression could form early or in the middle part of next week while it moves west or west northwest. And they've upped it from 40% to 50% probability of tropical cyclone formation. So that, again, you got to watch. We got to watch the Gulf next week because and the Caribbean because pressures there with all the big ridge so far north. That means that it's below normal pressures to the south of it and below normal pressures to the west of it. So you have to keep an eye on things in the second half of June to see if anything spins up. And something might.
We shall see.
All right.
And
All right. Go
I
ahead. I'm
should
sorry.
point out that the Joe and Joe Weather Show does indeed uh, deal with and work on the seal of good practice.
Where did
We
you
like.
find that?
You remember that? Remember in
Yeah.
television stations they used to when they sign on or sign off, they said we used to, we deal with the seal of good practice, which identifies this station as one that you're not going to hear naughty words or you're not going to hear anything. And I think it was back in the late 80s or 90s. They just simply said the heck with this. Well, maybe I should say to the hell with this. We're not going to deal with this anymore. Say anything you want, for the most part. But yeah, that's television today. But back in the days, you know, every television station had to display the scene. And even if you look at some of the older TV shows, like on MASH, for example, or maybe Perry Mason. I don't know. But at the end when they're rolling the credits, there was the seal of good practice, the standards and practices that that we used to adhere to.
Well, and you could turn around and say that right now there are no standards whatsoever.
Right.
All right, we're gonna end it here on this Friday night. You know why? Because it's a Friday night.
Yes.
And we want to end it here. So the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the description to this podcast. Use the coupon code SPRING 2024. If you do, you will get.
You'll get 10% off, and we want to thank everybody who tuned in on this unusual Friday night. And thank you also for the 37 likes. And who
And
hit the tip jar?
David Schwartz hitting the tip jar.
Thank you.
Happy Father's Day to all the dads. We're not going to be on Sunday. We'll be back on Monday, and we'll try to find out why Reuben Fairchild wasn't here for this Friday night show.
Right. Exactly. And
Uh,
happy Flag Day. Happy
yes,
Flag Day to everybody, too.
today was Flag Day. Yes. All right, very good. We'll see everybody on Monday. Night
Yes.
night.